Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Horowitz, I wanted to visit with you a little bit. I may be the only member of Congress that worked in an IG's office a number of years ago before I became a prosecutor. And I have a concern, without seeing the IG subpoena and without hearing from the other side, do your subpoenas in any way inhibit an investigation? In other words, you were also a prosecutor. You understand the discovery requirements that can be created if there is a parallel investigation. You understand the concerns with grand jury secrecy and the disclosure that must be made to a court. Are your requests narrowly enough drawn so that they do not inhibit FBI prosecutions in counterintelligence, counterterrorism, very serious areas?
A very fair question, and something, as a former prosecutor, I'm acutely aware of. We do a couple things to try and be careful in that regard. We tend not to undertake investigations or reviews while there are criminal cases ongoing or criminal prosecutions ongoing. We try to make sure where that is happening, but we need to investigate. We do it in a manner that doesn't trample into an area that could harm the case. Best example I can give is, and I wasn't here at the time, but post 9/11, we were asked to look at the issues at the same time the Moussaoui prosecution was going forward. And everything I've heard from my staff is an example of, frankly, their longing for the good old days, where we did work together in a manner that the FBI respected our ability to have to move forward, get the work done, but we also understood and worked with the agency to make sure that we did it in a responsible, careful way, but never compromising our independence, never compromising our thoroughness, and making sure we did everything to get to the bottom of issues.
And a perfect example might be a subpoena for, a grand jury subpoena for financial records. We would typically ask for 3 or 4 years of financial records and then get a monthly statement and then go through the monthly statement and ask for specific items that we're looking for. Do you have that relationship with the Bureau at this point where you can actually ask for a broader area but go through specifically and say, this is what we're really after, can you help us? Or is that something that you don't want to do? Does that give away your investigation?
No, we've had that discussion. Indeed, I'll give you a good example just recently with the DEA and Section 218. We had a deadline approaching. I talked with the administrator. I talked with an associate in the Deputy Attorney General's office with constructive ideas on how to make sure we saw and had access to the information we needed to assure ourselves that we were getting that, but then allow them to keep custody, take custody of the records that were unrelated and were not of interest to us going forward, so that we could make sure that we had satisfied our needs in terms of thoroughness, review, et cetera, but also respecting their concerns about how the records were maintained and stored and kept. And those are the kinds of dialogues that should be occurring, not can we get access, but how do we make sure our access is done in a manner that is consistent with our independence, consistent with your expectations of what we need to do to get to the bottom of issues, but also understanding that there are countervailing issues and concerns out there.
With the short time I have left, I want to ask a question of the whole panel. And you mentioned the word independence. From the agency's perspective, often it's not independence, it's a thorn in their side. What you discover may embarrass them. What you discover may be something that that is turned around in the press and embarrasses them in a way that indicates that they aren't doing their job properly, or it could be used for political purposes by others. How do we overcome that issue? And I throw this open. How do we really address what we all want, which is achieving an efficient and accountable government?
I think it boils down to trust, ultimately. If the two parties trust that we're all on the same page, because at the end of the day, we're all on the same page. You know, we all work for an agency, and the mission of the agency is our mission. For EPA is to protect public health and the environment. That's my job, to do that as well. But my job is a little different because I'm focused on on identifying where funds are not being used to the full extent and then making recommendations that they can. So it really kind of boils down to trust. If you've got the trust in the relationship, things can work out. If you don't have trust, it's going to be rocky.
Thank you. Thank you. Well said. I now recognize the gentleman, Mr. Cummings.